of thumb I used, and I found it worked out very neatly.
And even if you do have 150 candidates on the ballot, like we did in the recall election, we still had people that got, pretty huge percentage of the vote, and the people that weren't able to fundraise and were just on the ballot as novelties got, a few hundred votes, some of them, I think. So it was very little. So what didn't really confuse the voters at all. No one accidentally voted in some unknown person who just got his name on the ballot for fun,
Yes,
just so we have a souvenir to give to his kids. Look, I ran for governor. And also there's other states where it costs hundreds of thousands of dollars to get on the ballot, and the Republicans and Democrats, it's free.
Yes.
So are we having success at fighting that in the courts as well?
We've had a rough time in the courts because of a very, very unfortunate decision in 1971 from the U.S. Supreme Court. That year they upheld the Georgia ballot access laws. The Georgia ballot access laws said if the party pulled 20% of the vote for president in the entire country, or 20% for governor of Georgia, their nominees could be on the ballot automatically. No petition for them. And also Republicans and Democrats seeking a place on the primary ballot didn't need a petition either. They just paid a filing fee. Everybody else, the only way onto the November ballot was a petition signed by 5% of all the voters in the state, if they're running statewide, or in their particular district. Now that is so tough. People don't realize how tough 5% of all the registered voters is. In the first place, a lot of the people who are registered to vote, you can never find them to get them to sign a petition. A large proportion of registered voters live overseas. A lot of them are in the military, either overseas or in a base that the public can't go. Lots of people are shut-ins. Some people are senile, but they're still registered. Or a lot of people their mind's fine, but they're in a hospital. Or they're in gated communities. Or they're people that just don't get out and walk around for whatever reason. The 5% rule is so bad that it's existed for 61 years, and in 61 years, no minor party candidate for the U.S. House of Representatives has ever qualified.
Wow.
So we've had a total Republican-Democratic monopoly in U.S. House races in Georgia since 1943. Georgia has eased that summon for statewide office. That's why we see libertarians on the ballot for statewide office, but you'll never seen a libertarian running for Congress or any other third party.
And Georgia has a fairly strong libertarian party as well, with lots of participation.
Yes.
As far as I have seen. And also, this sets the bar, all these restrictions in all these states, sets the bar too high. As a small party, we have to raise, has been half our money that we have, half our budget, even money we don't have, on ballot access. And then beyond that, there's nothing left over to help our candidates get even a foothold.
That's right. And even for voters who aren't interested in minor parties, it's a dirty, rotten trick. This year, 4 U.S. House races in Georgia only have one person on the general election ballot because they're one-party districts, and so the weaker of the two major parties just doesn't bother to run anything.
Right.
So what a joke on the voters. And furthermore, for the legislature, typically over half the seats only have one person on the general election ballot.
How can we improve that? Let's say I'm a citizen, I'm listening to this show, and I'm just outraged, and I want to do something about it. What can I do?
Congressman Ron Paul has a bill in Congress to outlaw these restrictions. It's House H.R. 1941. So you could ask your member of Congress to co-sponsor H.R. 1941. I want to emphasize not every state has an unfair ballot access law. It sort of depends on what's... If you're upset about Georgia, unfortunately, there's probably nothing you could do about it unless you live in Georgia.
But California is, we're lucky here in California where we're shooting this, where we can register to vote as a libertarian. And that means a lot to a lot of people, that you can actually say, yes, I'm a libertarian, these are my views. I mean, other people get to express their political views in their party registration, and we should be able to do so as well. And here, at least in California, we can. There's still restrictions to getting on the ballot. We don't always succeed in all of the places, but then again, we could have 100 people running for, small House seats. But also, really anyone can file for a lot of the smaller district elections here, like the water boards and stuff like that, and we never have 100 people on the ballot for those, and really all you have to do is put your name on the ballot.
Yeah, so a lot of people have the misconception that minor party nominees never get elected to partisan office, and that's not true. In 2002, 9 minor party nominees were elected around the country to state legislatures.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's good news.
And in California, in 1999, a Green was elected to the California legislature.
Mm-hmm. I think that it's good, from my perspective as a libertarian. I don't really see the Greens as having a strong philosophical disagreement with the Democrats, but I see the Libertarians as having a very strong philosophical disagreement from both the Republicans and the Democrats. And I think that we will probably see parties like the Green Party that are much more similar to the Republicans and Democrats win, but what they'll do hopefully is open the door for parties that are drastically different from both in the future.
Well, even the Libertarian Party has elected state legislators in 3 states, Alaska, Vermont, and New Hampshire.
So how do you memorize all this stuff? How did you become interested in all of this information? I mean, you know it so well. What sparked your interest in this?
When I was in college, I was fascinated by people who held onto a political ideology that was at sharp variance with the vast majority of people. There was no, this is in the 60s, there was no Libertarian Party then. But I wanted to study who votes for these parties. And I was kind of frustrated because I couldn't get enough data because these parties tended not to be in the ballot in so many states. So then I got deflected. I got interested in why that was, and it was the ballot access laws. And I lived through the worst, I'm 60, when I was in my 20s, we had the worst onslaught of hostile ballot access laws in the entire history of the country. That was the period 1969 to 1971. It was really discouraging. 1/3 of the states drastically toughened the requirements. It was because of George Wallace, who ran as a third-party candidate for president in 1968, and he shocked the country. He got 13%. No minor party or independent candidate for president had done that well since 1924. You know, the major party politicians had been kind of relaxed about minor parties and independents because they were so feeble, and then Wallace came along and did that. And wow, up went the requirements.
Has there been a backlash like that against Nader and Perot?
The most recent backlash period we had was 1995. That was a very bad year. That was in reaction to what happened in 1994. The Republicans won both houses of Congress, both, not just one, for the first time since 1952. And that was not expected. That was a big shock. That was the contract with America, Newt Gingrich, remember? And the Democrats still had a lot of power in a lot of southern states, especially in the state legislatures, and they were in such a bad mood that year. Things were really bad that year. Things got a lot worse in the South. We haven't had a year like that since then, but I'm a little frightened that we might have a year like that in 2005.
Of course, the Libertarian Party candidate is going to be on the ballot in almost all the states, and
I'm quite sure he'll be on in 49.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, that's wonderful.
It's just Oklahoma.
By the time the viewers are seeing this, the election will probably already be over.
Yeah.
And hopefully we'll be looking at a situation where our candidate, the Libertarian Party candidate, was being blamed for throwing the Republican out of office. I certainly hope. Now, that's what you're saying, that perhaps this could cause a backlash against third parties again, as Nader was seen as throwing out Al Gore.
Yes, there was no backlash like that in 2001, but what the 2000 election did slow down our progress. We made a lot of headway improving ballot access laws in 1998 and 1999, and then that progress all came to a halt after the 2000 election.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's been a stalemate. There's been no state that's made it worse since 2000, but there's been barely any that have made it better either.
Now, people are always more and more disregarding libertarians, disregarding third-party candidates because of the low amount of votes that many of them get. But is that, in your opinion, because of the ballot access laws or because of extremely low interest in those parties?
Partly it's because of the exclusionary nature